All right, today we're diving into the incredible life of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now, this was a man born into a system literally designed to crush him, who then rose up to write the very rules that would tear that system down. He became the architect of the world's largest democracy. It's an amazing story.
So that brings us to this huge question, right? How do you actually build justice into a nation's DNA? I mean, think about it. You're starting a country from scratch, hundreds of millions of people, thousands of years of history. How do you make sure equality isn't just some nice idea on paper, but a real, legally binding thing for everyone?
Well, that massive question, it pretty much found its answer in this one man. We're going to explore how Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, someone born on the absolute lowest rung of society, somehow managed to climb all the way to the top and write the entire rulebook for modern India.
See, Ambedkar's blueprint for a just nation? Well, it wasn't something he just cooked up in a university library. Oh no, it was forged in the fire of some serious personal hardship. His story starts in a world with a social hierarchy that was just incredibly rigid and brutal.
Okay, so Ambedkar was born into what was called the Mahar caste. This group was considered, and this is the term they used, untouchables. And let's be really clear, this wasn't just some mean nickname. It was an entire system of oppression. It dictated everything about your life, and it was designed to deny you even basic human dignity from the second you were born.
And for a young Ambedkar, this wasn't some abstract idea he read about in a book. This was his everyday life. But here's the thing. These incredibly painful experiences, they didn't break him. Instead, they became the fuel for his lifelong mission, to tear that entire system down.
I mean, just try to imagine this for a second. You're a little kid at school, you're thirsty, and you're literally forbidden from drinking from the same water pot as the other kids. Imagine your own teachers, the people who are supposed to help you learn, refusing to even touch your notebook. This wasn't a one-time thing. It was a constant, crushing, daily reminder of the injustice he was born into.
But, and this is where the story takes a truly incredible turn. Instead of letting all that injustice crush him, Ambedkar decided to fight back. And his weapon of choice? Knowledge. He went on to become one of the most highly educated people of his entire generation, racking up degrees from top universities like Columbia and the London School of Economics. He was literally forging an arsenal of intellectual weapons to wage a social war.
So armed with this world-class education, he comes back to India. But he doesn't just come back as a quiet scholar. He comes back as a revolutionary. He starts to challenge the very foundations of the caste system, and not just with essays and speeches, but with direct, powerful action. And this one event, the Mahad Satyagraha, it's like a perfect little snapshot of his entire life struggle. The problem was brutally simple. Untouchables weren't allowed to drink from the public water tank. Ambedkar's response was just as simple and totally profound. He led thousands of people on a peaceful march right up to that tank, and he took a drink. It was this electrifying act of defiance, basically saying, my humanity, my right to a simple drink of water is not up for debate.
And look, he didn't just stop at these big symbolic moments. He was a brilliant organizer. He knew that to make real, lasting change, you need constant pressure. So he started organizations for Dalit rights, he led movements to enter temples they'd been barred from, and he even founded political parties to fight for power from inside the system. The man was building a full-on, nationwide movement for equality.
So all of this, the scholarship, the activism, the organizing, it was all building up to one single, historic moment. India is on the verge of independence, and Ambedkar is handed maybe the most important job of all, to be the chief architect of the new nation's constitution.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly sums up his whole philosophy. He said, political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of it social democracy. I mean, for Ambedkar, freedom wasn't just about getting to vote every few years. What good is a vote if you're still not allowed to drink from the village well? He knew, deep down, that for political freedom to be real, it had to be built on a rock-solid foundation of social equality. So, as the head of the drafting committee, he got to work, and he systematically turned his entire life's fight into the actual law of the land. It's incredible when you look at it. For every major injustice he had fought against, he created a specific, rock-solid constitutional solution. The problem was untouchability? Boom, Article 17 makes it illegal. The problem was inequality? Boom, fundamental rights for everyone. This wasn't just a document, it was a blueprint for justice.
But Ambedkar was a realist.
He knew that even the most perfect constitution in the world has its limits. Sure, he'd built the legal house for a new India, but he felt it needed a whole new moral foundation. He realized that laws can change behavior, but they can't always change hearts and minds. And that led him to search for a new spiritual path.
You have to remember, he'd spent his entire life fighting the caste system from within Hinduism. But eventually, he came to a really tough conclusion, that the system itself was just fundamentally broken, that it couldn't be reformed. And to truly be free, he decided he had to leave the religion he was born into and find a new spiritual home, one that was actually built on the principles of equality and compassion that he held so dear.
That search ultimately led him to Buddhism. And what happened next was just monumental. In October of 1956, he didn't just convert by himself. No, he led a mass conversion of nearly 500,000 of his followers, 500,000 people. It was this incredible collective walk away from centuries of oppression, all of them moving together towards a new faith built on equality.
Tragically, Ambedkar would pass away just a couple of months after this historic event. But his death, it wasn't the end of his story, not by a long shot. In a lot of ways, his real legacy was only just getting started.
You know, from that one final, powerful act, his influence just started to radiate out across the world. Today, he's not just an Indian hero. He's become a global symbol for anyone, anywhere who's fighting against oppression and for social justice. His life is just proof that one person's struggle really can light the way for millions.
I mean, look at all the ways we remember him. Father of the Indian Constitution, champion of Dalit rights, voice of the oppressed, ambassador of equality, a visionary scholar. Every single one of those titles is true. And yet somehow, none of them on their own really capture the sheer scale of what he accomplished. He really was an architect of human dignity.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Ambedkar gave his nation a blueprint for justice. His life is proof that a better, more equal future can be designed, can be architected. So the question his legacy really leaves for all of us is, what blueprint are we building today?